Chapter 1: Into the Abyss. The Everfree Forest was known for its shadows, its shifting paths, and its ancient magic. But deep within its tangled heart lay something far worse, a perfect, yawning circle of absolute blackness known to ponykind as the Infinity Hole. No pony knew what happened to those who crossed its threshold. All they knew was that nothing, not a stone, not a lantern, not a rope, had ever returned. And no matter how long you stood at the edge, listening into the dark, you never heard the sound of something hitting the bottom. Did it loop forever? Was it a gateway to an unknown world? The hole kept its secrets well. "Come on, Apple Bloom. Look at this," Sweetie Belle called out, her hooves crunching on the dead leaves near the perimeter. The Cutie Mark Crusaders had ventured closer to the forbidden zone than any filly should. Apple Bloom and Scootaloo were a few paces behind, examining a strange, glowing moss on a nearby tree trunk. "Sweetie Belle, get back from there," Apple Bloom warned, looking up with a frown. "No pony is supposed to even look at that thing." "I just want to see if the rumors are true," Sweetie Belle muttered, leaning forward. She peered into the void. It didn't reflect the sky. It didn't reflect her face. It was just a heavy, suffocating nothingness. Then, the damp earth beneath her back hooves gave way. Whoa! Sweetie Belle's front hooves flailed in the air. She scrambled for purchase, but the loose dirt slid instantly into the chasm. With a sharp gasp, she tipped backward and fell. Apple Bloom. Scootaloo. Her scream pierced the quiet forest. Apple Bloom and Scootaloo lunged forward, their eyes wide with horror, but they were too late. Sweetie Belle vanished into the black. The Crusaders stood frozen at the edge, listening. Sweetie Belle's screams continued, but they weren't stopping. They weren't hitting anything. Instead, the sound just grew slowly, agonizingly quieter. It faded from a panicked shriek to a distant echo, then to a faint whisper, until finally, the forest returned to a terrifying, dead silence. "Sweetie Belle," Apple Bloom cried out, tears welling in her eyes. "No, no, no." Beside her, Scootaloo's jaw set. Her small wings began to buzz, vibrating with a desperate, furious energy. "I'm going after her," Scootaloo said, her voice shaking but determined. "Are you crazy?" Apple Bloom screamed, grabbing Scootaloo's shoulder. "You heard her. She's gone. We don't even know where the bottom is." "I know today is gonna be the day I can fly," Scootaloo declared, tearing herself away from Apple Bloom's grip. "Miracles happen when friends are in trouble. I'll catch her." "Scootaloo, stop." But Scootaloo didn't listen. With a fierce cry, she flung herself off the edge and dived headfirst into the Infinity Hole, her tiny wings beating furiously before she, too, was instantly swallowed by the absolute dark. Apple Bloom was left entirely alone on the precipice. A blind panic seized her chest. Every instinct told her to jump, to dive into the void and hold on to her friends, to face whatever nightmare lay below together. But another voice in her head screamed that she needed to run, to get Twilight, to find Applejack, to get help. "If I leave, they're alone. If I stay, we're all lost." The internal battle lasted for a single, agonizing heartbeat. In a split-second decision, fueled by pure, unadulterated love for her friends, Apple Bloom closed her eyes and jumped. She tipped over the edge, abandoning the solid earth, and disappeared into the void. The edge of the Infinity Hole was quiet once more, save for the rustling of the wind through the trees. But the Crusaders weren't as alone as they had thought. From behind a dense thicket of brambles, a pale, trembling pony stepped into the clearing. They had seen everything. Their eyes were wide with sheer terror as they looked at the empty, silent hole, and then back toward the path leading out of the woods. Without a word, the witness spun on their hooves and bolted through the trees at a frantic gallop, kicking up dust and leaves, desperately racing toward the Castle of Friendship before it was too late. Chapter 2: The Gathering Storm. The massive oak doors of the Castle of Friendship groaned as they swung open. The pony collapsed against the threshold, chest heaving so violently their entire frame shuddered. They tried to speak, but the words were trapped behind a throat raw from exhaustion and terror. All that emerged was a ragged, wet wheeze. Spike, who had been organizing scrolls in the foyer, dropped his clipboard. Whoa. Hey, take it easy, you're safe. He rushed forward, but the pony just lunged for his collar, eyes wide and bulging with a frantic, desperate intensity. Every breath they took was a jagged, painful gasp. Spike? What's going on? Twilight Sparkle appeared in a sudden flash of lavender magic, her horn glowing with an ambient hum. She had sensed the urgency in Spike's panicked mental shout from the other room. She took one look at the trembling, soot-stained pony on her floor, and her own heart skipped a beat. Please, Twilight said, her voice dropping to a calm, authoritative command. Take a breath. Tell me what happened. The ponies struggled, clawing at their own chest, fighting the physical collapse of their body until, finally, the message broke through. 3 fillies. Crusaders. Infinity Hole. The air in the foyer seemed to vanish. Twilight's eyes widened, the pupils shrinking to pinpricks. The color drained from her face as the weight of the words crushed the silence. The Infinity Hole. Her mind raced through every ancient scroll and forbidden text she had studied in the archives. No pony had ever returned from that place. There was no bottom, no echo, no escape, just the endless, soul-swallowing dark. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Twilight pushed it down. She thought of Rarity, whose world would shatter at the loss of Sweetie Belle, of Applejack, whose very foundation was her family, and of Rainbow Dash, who loved Scootaloo with a ferocity that defied words. These weren't just random ponies, they were the heart of the next generation. Twilight bolted down the corridor toward the war room, her hooves clattering loudly against the crystalline floors. She nearly collided with Starlight Glimmer, who was carrying a stack of reference books. Twilight? Whoa, slow down. Starlight said, catching her balance as the books hovered safely in her teal magic. What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. No time to talk. Something terrible has happened, Twilight gasped, her wings flaring instinctively. The Cutie Mark Crusaders. They went into the Infinity Hole. Starlight's jaw dropped, her magic flickering for a split second. Her eyes went completely wide with alarm. The Infinity Hole? Twilight, no pony has ever come out of there. We don't even know where it leads. It could be a never-ending fall, or somewhere completely worse. We can't just go in blindly. I don't care what's in that hole, I'm going in. Starlight cried out a moment later, a sudden, fierce panic taking over her expression as she gripped Twilight's shoulders. Starlight, wait. Twilight pressed back, her voice firm despite her own racing heart. Please, just wait until we come up with a plan. It won't do any good if we just act out of fear and go headfirst into something when we have absolutely no idea what it is. Starlight took a sharp, ragged breath, looking into Twilight's determined eyes. Finally, she nodded, letting out a tense exhale. You're right. You're right. Let's go. The two of them rushed together into the castle library, immediately pulling heavy, dust-covered volumes from the highest shelves. They slammed the books open on the main table, frantically flipping through pages of ancient lore, desperately searching for even a single mention of the Infinity Hole's origins. They were deep into the research when the heavy library doors burst open. Applejack, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash hurried into the room, alerted by a panicked message from Spike. Twilight. Applejack called out, her face pale beneath her Stetson. Spike said it was an emergency. What's happened to the girls? Twilight looked up from the ancient texts, her face completely pale. The girls fell into the Infinity Hole. And I don't know if we can save them. I've searched every text we have, and I can't find anything on where this hole leads, or if it really is a never-ending fall. Rarity gasped, her hooves flying to her mouth. Applejack gripped the edge of the library table so hard her knuckles turned white. Rainbow Dash dropped out of the air, landing heavily. No, Applejack whispered. Not Apple Bloom. Our best bet, unfortunately, is for us to take a major risk and go in after them, Twilight said, trying to channel every ounce of leadership she possessed. We need to get Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy here right now. Together, we have always been stronger, and nothing has ever come between us and friendship. Starlight immediately turned toward the balcony. I'll teleport and find them. Before Starlight could even clear the balcony, a tremendous crash echoed from the castle foyer. The heavy library doors were violently flung open. Big Mac stepped into the room, his chest heaving, his face etched with a fierce, unwavering gravity. He had heard the rumors and refused to stand by. I left Granny Smith back at the orchard, Big Mac said, his voice deep and thick with emotion. Didn't tell her a lick of what's truly happening. Just told her I had some things to take care of with Applejack, and that we'd be back soon, and that Apple Bloom would be right there with us. A sharp flash of teal magic illuminated the center of the library as Starlight Glimmer teleported back into the room. Beside her stood Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie. Fluttershy looked completely shocked, and Pinkie Pie, whose mane was slightly deflated, had heavy, silent tears welling in her eyes. This wasn't a normal case of a missing pony. We're all here, Twilight said, her voice tight with absolute authority. No more waiting. Grab whatever supplies you can carry in 10 seconds. We're heading straight to the Infinity Hole. Chapter 3, Into Chaosville. Realizing the Cutie Mark Crusaders might be hurt, the group scrambled to gather bandages, medical supplies, food, and water. Within moments, they were sprinting deep into the Everfree Forest until they finally reached the edge of the yawning black void. Twilight used her magic to conjure an incredibly thick, magically reinforced rope, tying it securely to a sturdy tree near the perimeter. To leave absolutely nothing to chance, Applejack and Big Mac both bucked the tree with all their might to ensure the knot held firm. This never-ending rope might be their only tether back to reality. They peered down into the absolute darkness. Tie the rope around me, Rainbow Dash ordered. With a swift glow of her horn, Twilight wrapped the heavy magical cord securely around Rainbow's torso. Follow my lead. I'll get us down there faster than any pony else. Without a single second of hesitation, Rainbow took a dive, rocketing straight into the Infinity Hole. One by one, the others began their terrifying descent. Starlight Glimmer levitated herself down, Fluttershy flew close beside her, and Pinkie Pie somehow bounced her way downward against the ambient air currents. Applejack, Big Mac, and Rarity climbed down the rocky upper walls of the chasm, digging their hooves into the earth just in case they hit a hidden ledge. Twilight fell into the void close behind them all, acting as a rear guard in case something came out of the darkness behind them. As they descended lower and lower, it felt as though the hole would never end. The darkness grew so incredibly thick that it could practically be felt against their coats, pressing in like a heavy fog. Pinkie Pie tried to hum a happy little tune to lighten the mood, but the darkness was just too thick, swallowing the melody instantly. Then, something completely shocking happened. The sensation of falling suddenly shifted. They felt, inexplicably, as if they were no longer descending at all, but ascending. The heavy darkness began to lighten, fracturing into a dim, strange glow. One by one, the rescue party popped out of the end of the hole. But as they pulled themselves out and looked around, they realized this was not the world they knew. The horizon was warped. Everything seemed to be entirely upside down, defying gravity and logic. Giant roots grew into the sky, rock formations suspended themselves in midair, and there was a terrifying, absolute absence of any chirping birds or animal sounds. Fluttershy gasped as her eyes swept across the twisted landscape. Discord? Discord, are you here? With a sharp pop, Discord materialized in midair, lounging upside down. As the other ponies gasped in shock, Twilight stepped forward. Fluttershy, how did you know he was here? Because I've been here before, Fluttershy answered softly. This is Chaosville. Discord looked at the large group in genuine confusion. How on earth did you all get here? Normally, I have to explicitly let ponies in using my own magic. Starlight Glimmer stepped forward. We went into the Infinity Hole in the Everfree Forest. Discord let out a sharp laugh. So that's where that old drain pipe leads. Who would have thought? Applejack slammed a heavy hoof onto the inverted ground. We're here for serious business, Discord. My little sister and her best friends fell into that hole. They're here somewhere in this pony-forsaken place. The smirk instantly vanished from Discord's face. He looked genuinely alarmed. Wait, the fillies are here? Fluttershy, the time I brought you here, we were just on the outskirts. I've never taken any pony into this specific part of Chaosville because it's just too dangerous. There are things lurking out here that even I don't like to think about. Big Mac stepped forward, his jaw set tight. I don't care what's out here. My sister's here. I'll face it, and I'll buck it into tomorrow. Rainbow Dash zoomed right up into Discord's face. Listen to me, Miss Match. You help us find those fillies right now, or I'll personally make you pay. Discord stepped back a little, holding his claws up. Trust me, Rainbow Dash, I want to find them just as much as you do. I may be the spirit of chaos, but I would never want to see an innocent filly get hurt. Chapter 4. The Shadows of Fear. Rarity broke down, her hooves covering her face. Oh, my Sweetie Belle. Please, please don't let anything happen to my Sweetie Belle. Pinkie Pie immediately wrapped a tight, comforting hoof around her. She's gonna be okay, Rarity. Twilight always has a brilliant plan, don't you, Twilight? Twilight nodded. Let's try to find them right now. Starlight, use your magic with mine. We'll see if we can cast a tracking spell. They tried to unleash their magic, but the spells fizzled, curved wildly in midair, and turned into a shower of harmless, glowing bubbles floating sideways. You just can't use magic here the same way you do in Equestria, Discord interrupted. This is Chaosville. If you want a spell to work, you have to do it in a chaotic, nonsensical way. Let me show you. Discord snapped his fingers with a loud click. With a puff of green smoke, a large bloodhound appeared wearing a pink ballet skirt and a tiny, glittering tiara, loudly singing an off-tune operatic melody. Suddenly, the dog froze, lifted its front paws, and pointed its snout stiffly toward a dark, twisted forest of upside-down trees. Applejack stared at the ballerina hound. Well, it's good for something, I guess. Fluttershy looked up at Discord with a soft smile. Thank you, Discord. I've always known you cared. Discord blushed furiously and looked away. The rescue party quickly fell into step behind the singing ballerina hound. But the eerie silence didn't last long. Without warning, a pack of massive beasts lunged into the clearing. They looked like timberwolves, but their bodies were completely mismatched, made of twisted purple briars, jagged floating rocks, and glowing neon moss. Before anyone could strike, Pinkie Pie stood right in front of the monsters, crossing her eyes and pulling the most ridiculous face imaginable. One by one, the terrifying beasts collapsed onto the inverted grass, letting out high-pitched, hysterical giggles. Discord's jaw dropped. How in the world did you know that would work? Duh. Every pony likes a good laugh. Pinkie grinned. Twilight studied the rolling, laughing creatures. They're not timberwolves at all, are they? Nope. Discord responded gravely. Those are timbergigglers. But they're a bit of a warning system. Because when you see them, you know not far behind is their leader, Nightmare Syndrome. He doesn't actually have a physical form of his own until he finds fear. And right now, that is exactly what he's looking for. Rarity screamed out, "Oh, my Sweetie Belle. If that creature feeds on fear, my poor little sister is the absolute definition of it right now." As her cries echoed, the ponies slowly turned their heads, their eyes locking onto Fluttershy. Fluttershy nervously pulled her pink mane over her face. "Why is every pony looking at me?" Applejack adjusted her Stetson. "Your fear is practically a beacon, Sugar Cube. He's probably smelling it and looking for you. But don't you worry, we won't let him touch a hair on your mane." Rainbow Dash immediately dropped out of the sky, flaring her wings in a fierce defensive pose. Twilight looked at Starlight. "Starlight. Discord said magic here works off of chaos. What would happen if one of us changed our form into that of a nightmare itself? What would happen if two nightmares met?" Starlight's eyes lit up. "It should be me. Because when it comes to playing the villain, no pony here has a track record quite like mine." Discord tried to argue that he was scarier, but Starlight smirked, reminders of her past brainwashing and timeline-breaking silencing him. With a blinding flash of volatile teal magic, Starlight's body shifted and stretched, transforming into Nightmare Glimmer. She looked terrifyingly similar to Nightmare Moon, with a midnight blue coat and a mane of dark, starlit mist. She threw her head back, letting out a chilling, echoing cackle. Fluttershy whimpered, but Big Mac stepped up. I trust her. She's gonna help us find this nightmare syndrome. Suddenly, over the sound of Nightmare Glimmer's cackling, a loud, screeching scream pierced the forest. Help! Rarity, help me! It sounded exactly like Sweetie Belle. Rarity bolted blindly toward the sound, but Discord popped out, stopping her. It might be your sister, but it might not be. Out here, things will pretend to be what you love most just to get you to come to them. You can't trust your ears, and you'll barely be able to trust what you see. Applejack grimaced. Then we're basically running blind. But we don't have a choice. Hoping to get a vantage point, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy flew straight up into the air. Off in the distance, they saw Sweetie Belle, Bloom, and Scootaloo, but they appeared to be frozen in time, completely motionless. Forgetting the warnings, Rainbow Dash's protective instincts took over, and she zoomed straight toward them. The moment she landed, the illusion shattered into empty, mocking shadows. A bucking fake! Rainbow snarled, turning to fly back. But dark, tendril-like shadows shot up from the ground, wrapping tightly around her hooves and wings, pulling her down. Nightmare Glimmer rocketed into the clearing, blasting a chaotic spell that created a localized phase hole, allowing the other ponies to pass straight through the solid, twisted brambles. Pinkie Pie leaped into the fray, pulling out her party cannon and firing a barrage of tiny, swirling void holes. Nightmare Glimmer synchronized her dark magic with the blast, steering the flying holes straight into the grasping shadows, tearing them apart and freeing Rainbow Dash. Then a chilling, distorted laugh burst forth from the deep darkness. Emerging from the shadows was a figure that made Rarity's heart violently drop. It looked exactly like Sweetie Belle, but she was entirely dark, her coat of void black and her eyes glowing with an eerie, malicious crimson light. She sneered, her voice echoing with a dual tone, "I'm going to tear you apart, piece by piece." Before anyone could speak, a dark silhouette plummeted from above. It was a twisted, terrifying version of Scootaloo, altered into a bat pony with leathery wings and sharp fangs finally flying, but at a terrible cost. Then, the ground beneath their hooves began to rumble. A low, scratching voice hissed from the shifting earth, "It's time for the harvesting of souls." Bloom's corrupted voice bled through the soil as the ground began to crack open. Discord gasped. Nightmare syndrome has taken them over completely. Twilight took a decisive step forward, her horn erupting into a brilliant lavender light alongside Nightmare Glimmer's crackling teal energy. "Whoa, whoa. Just wait a minute there," Applejack shouted, jumping in front of them. "You can't just attack my sister and her friends. We just need to put everything on simmer for just a little bit and think." Big Mac and Rainbow Dash firmly agreed. Rarity wept, believing they were already lost, but Pinkie Pie insisted they would never give up. Fluttershy softly spoke up from the back. "Discord said magic here runs on chaos, so instead of hurting any pony, why don't we try to make things chaotic?" Every pony stopped and turned to stare at Fluttershy in absolute shock. A wide, wicked smirk spread across Nightmare Glimmer's face. "Brilliant." Discord beamed with pride. "Show 'em what you've got." Immediately, Fluttershy stepped forward and did the most chaotic thing possible for a neat world. She began to intentionally tidy up the twisted environment. Then, channeling her inner Pinkie Pie, she marched right up to the terrifying, dark version of Sweetie Belle and began making the most ridiculous, cross-eyed funny faces, even pulling out Pinkie's heavy party cannon. The three Nightmare Crusaders completely froze, locked in utter confusion. "Now, Dash!" Twilight yelled. Rainbow Dash blurred into motion, zooming around the three confused fillies at hypersonic speed, creating a pressurized kinetic field that tightly trapped the three corrupted Crusaders in place. As the fillies struggled against the wind barrier, Twilight and Starlight converged, their horns glowing in perfect synchronization. "Starlight, if we invert our own magical frequencies to match the chaos of this realm," Twilight shouted over the roar of the wind, "we can draw the nightmare syndrome out of them like a vacuum." "I'm ready," Nightmare Glimmer yelled back, her dark mist swirling. Let's pull these monsters out of our girls. Chapter 5. The Vanishing Shadow. Twilight and Nightmare Glimmer unleashed their synchronized magic, the lavender and volatile teal beams intertwining into a brilliant, swirling vortex. The spell struck the trapped fillies, and with a deafening, echoing roar, a wave of radiating darkness shot outward over the entire clearing. The heavy, suffocating pressure of Chaosville briefly intensified, cracking like thunder, before it suddenly shattered into nothingness. The cyclone dropped. The dark mist dissolved. Standing in the center of the clearing were 3 completely normal fillies, blinking in confusion as their vibrant colors returned. "Sweetie Belle!" Rarity cried out, breaking into a frantic gallop. Sweetie Belle ran forward, throwing her hooves tightly around her sister's neck. "Rarity, I missed you so much. It was so scary." Rarity squeezed her tightly, weeping tears of pure relief, entirely buried in her sister's embrace. But over Rarity's shoulder, Sweetie Belle's face blinked. For a fraction of a second, her eyes turned into completely empty, pitch-black voids, devoid of any light or warmth. The terrifying sight vanished almost as soon as it appeared, her eyes returning to their normal, innocent appearance. In the rush of the moment, surrounded by the strange, shifting lights of Chaosville, no pony saw it. Meanwhile, Apple Bloom looked up at Applejack and Big Mac, her bottom lip trembling. "Thanks so much for saving us." Big Mac walked over, lifting Apple Bloom up into a massive, gentle hug against his shoulder. "We would do anything for you, Apple Bloom." "Darn right we would," Applejack added, wiping her eyes and pulling them both close. Scootaloo looked up at Rainbow Dash, her regular Pegasus wings giving a small, familiar buzz. "Flying with those dark powers was awesome, but being back with you is so much better." Rainbow Dash crouched down, giving Scootaloo a fierce, playful noogie before pulling her into a tight half-wing hug. "It's great to have you back, Scoot. Don't you ever give me a scare like that again." As the emotional reunions filled the clearing, Starlight's horn flared one last time, shifting her dark, misty form back into her normal, pale purple unicorn self. She let out a long breath, rubbing her temples, while Pinkie Pie began passing out the snack bars they had packed. Discord floated down from above, sitting cross-legged on a giant floating dandelion. He looked at the happy group, a soft smirk on his face, though his eyes lingered carefully on the forest around them. He snapped his claws, bringing up a small, ticking grandfather clock. "Well, as touching as this family reunion is, this part of my backyard still gives me the creeps," Discord said, looking over at Twilight. "What do you say, everyone? Do you want me to just snap my claws and send us all straight back to the Castle of Friendship in Ponyville?" Chapter 6. The Perfect Switch. Twilight smiled, a massive weight finally lifting from her chest. "Yeah, I think every pony needs a good long rest after this." Discord nodded, his expression softening. With a theatrical flourish and a sharp snap of his claws, a bright flash of white light enveloped the entire group. When the light faded, the twisted horizons and inverted trees of Chaosville were gone. They were standing safely back in the familiar, sunlit outskirts of Ponyville. The warm, comforting breeze of Equestria carried the sweet scent of apple blossoms, a stark contrast to the dead silence they had just escaped. Fluttershy let out a sigh of relief, turning her gentle eyes toward the 3 fillies. "Are you 3 sure you don't need anything before I head home? A warm blanket, or perhaps some tea?" "We're completely fine, Miss Fluttershy," Apple Bloom replied with a polite, sweet smile. "Just a little bit tired from all that falling." "All right then. I need to go check on my animals. They must be wondering where I went," Fluttershy said, giving them a final, warm wave before trotting off toward her cottage. Pinkie Pie didn't waste a single second. Her mane bounced back to its maximum fluffiness as she began spinning in circles, rocketing herself toward Sugar Cube Corner. "Tomorrow we are having a massive, super-duper welcome back from the Chaos Whole Party. Sleep tight, fillies," she shouted over her shoulder, her voice echoing down the trail. Twilight and Starlight stood side by side, both looking incredibly happy and proud to have saved the 3 Cutie Mark Crusaders. The nightmare was over. Tomorrow, Twilight said, looking out toward the direction of the Everfree Forest. We will figure out a magical seal to completely plug up that hole so that no pony ever falls into it again. Starlight nodded in firm agreement. Absolutely. I'll start looking through containment spells first thing in the morning. With a sense of peace, the two of them trotted back toward the crystal towers of the Castle of Friendship. Applejack stretched her aching legs, turning to the rest of the group. All right, let's get you three youngins to your homes and into bed. You've had a day that would tire out an Ursa Major. Apple Bloom stepped forward, shuffling her hooves nervously. Applejack? Could the three of us say goodbye to each other in private first? Just for a minute? We just want to make sure we're all really okay. Rarity smoothed her mane, looking down lovingly. I don't see why not, sweetie. But don't take too long. My Sweetie Belle needs her beauty rest after such a dreadful ordeal. We won't be long. Scootaloo promised. All three fillies nodded and smiled warmly as they trotted a few paces away, slipping behind the shadow of a large, leafy bush near the edge of the path, completely hidden from the adults' view. The moment they were out of sight, the innocent expressions instantly vanished from their faces. The warm smiles turned into cold, calculating sneers. I can't believe those fools actually believed we are their sisters. Sweetie Belle whispered, her voice dripping with a malicious, low hiss. All three of them let out quiet, wicked laughs. Yeah, Apple Bloom muttered, her eyes flashing with a brief, dark glimmer. We have been trying to find a way out of Chaosville for years, and it was so bucking easy once those fools showed up with that magical rope. The entity wearing Scootaloo's face crossed its forelegs, a sinister grin spreading across its muzzle. Just think. Those three real fillies are stuck deep in Chaosville right now, and no pony has any idea. In fact, no pony will ever go looking for them because they think we are them. Our plan worked perfectly. They shared a quiet, triumphant chuckle, a chilling sound hidden perfectly by the rustling leaves of Ponyville. Come on, sweetie. Rarity's voice called out from the path, completely oblivious to the horror standing just yards away. Let's get you into bed. The creature mimicking Sweetie Belle turned back toward the path, winking slowly at the other two imposters. Coming, Rarity, she called out in a perfectly sweet, innocent voice, stepping out of the shadows to join her new sister.